They are terrifying. Good.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in episode 6 of Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. This episode was so satisfying. What a great way to open the second half of the season. We finally know the stakes, but there's also still so much mystery. So let's go ahead and break this baby down.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go!
For the first time, we go to the opening titles right away, so I knew this episode would be a tonal shift. Now, we're not going to go shot by shot here, but if you want that breakdown, it is in our very first video. We cut to this jazzy music and a banner that reads American Defense Industry Federation, 1955 Summer Ball, Bali High. Now, Bali High was a song in the 1949 musical South Pacific. In the musical, it was a mystical paradise island, and it's basically giving the ball a tropical theme, but South Pacific challenged racial prejudice. The main character, Ensign Nellie Forbush, must overcome her own prejudice to be with the love of her life who has mixed-race children. Another character, Lieutenant Joe Cable, falls in love with a Polynesian woman but can't be with her because it will never be accepted in America. The musical caused a big controversy at the time because it proposed that racism was a learned behavior. So this little inclusion of the word Bali High tells us a lot about the theme of this episode.
It all makes sense.
Man, I hate Christmas.
What? Why?
Oh, it's just too stressful. Buying gifts. Like my mom wants some nice jewelry and I got no idea what to buy her because I am so small.
Yeah, dude, I hear you. Buying jewelry is extremely confusing and frankly frustrating and overwhelming, especially when you're buying for somebody important, like a gift for your mom or an engagement ring. That's actually why JamesAllen.com works so well.
JamesAllen.com? Why, whatever is that?
Oh, well, JamesAllen.com makes it easy to custom design jewelry and engagement rings and at up to half the price of a traditional retailer. You can choose from more than 200,000 certified conflict-free diamonds, pick your ring setting, metal, and gemstone. But what I really like about this is the virtual experience of buying jewelry. You can see a 360-degree view and what the diamond actually looks like up close while you're chatting with a real-time diamond consultant, and they can educate you about the stone and walk you through this entire process. The magnification on the site is actually better than what you would see in person with a magnifying glass. You can pick from hundreds of ring settings in platinum or white rose or yellow gold, and if you're looking for ways to pop the question like this upcoming Valentine's Day, the consultant can even give you romantic ideas.
Romance? But this is for my mom.
Oh, no worries. JamesAllen.com also has a great selection of fine jewelry pieces. Everything from JamesAllen.com comes with a lifetime warranty, free resizing and engraving, and hassle-free 30-day returns. So customize your engagement ring or jewelry piece today with James Allen and get 25% off by clicking the link in the description. JamesAllen.com makes shopping for customized jewelry simple, educational, and even fun.
Okay, done.
What do you mean done?
Done like I did it. I got my mom a nice bracelet from JamesAllen.com and she loves it.
That fast?
Oh yes, that fast. And I love it.
That's awesome. And again, customize your engagement ring or jewelry piece today with James Allen and get 25% off by clicking the link in the description. Now, back to what I was saying. The musical trio is singing I'm Sitting on Top of the World by Ray Henderson, Sam L. Lewis, and Joe Young. Now, it could refer to Monarch's position. They're doing really well at the beginning of the episode. They have a lot of autonomy and money coming in from the US government. But I think it's actually a reference to this line from last episode.
We stand on the shoulders of giants.
We cut to Shaw and notice how he grimaces when he takes a sip of his drink. It's a subtle way to let us know that this is not going to be a good night. Keiko arrives and she is not happy to be there, saying,
I'm expecting to impress men who can't remember my name and would just as soon shut us down as turn our work into weaponry.
Now, it's important to remember that Keiko has to deal with two forms of prejudice, sexism and racism. She's the only person in Monarch with a doctorate, and yet she is taken the least seriously.
Thank you, miss.
Of course. And it's Doctor.
But also notice what she said about weapons. In the 1954 Godzilla, there was an anti-weapon theme. A character in the original, Dr. Serizawa, creates an oxygen destroyer that can kill Godzilla. However, he's so scared of it being used as a weapon that he burns his notes and commits suicide just so nobody else can recreate it. Also, Bill's not there.
Yeah, why isn't Bill there?
Because he's terrible with people. Remember this?
How does something this big walk around without being seen?
Well, I'm leaning towards teleportation.
We have a number of working theories, sir.
Bill's smart, but he can't handle the politicking, at least not by this point. By the time Kong comes around, he's pretty savvy.
So you didn't get the message, Randy? To reschedule?
For the 5th time? I must have missed it.
A drunk General Puckett reappears, saying,
I pulled him out of a bar brawl. He's all busted up.
Now that is a reference to the fight that we see in episode 2. Another officer says he wants to know more about Monarch, and Shaw replies,
I think that you will find our work vital to not only American security, but global scientific superiority.
Now, Shaw is great at politicking. He knows that it's not enough to study monsters, he has to pitch their research as something that could win the Cold War. But look how it flashes to Keiko's face when he says American security. For her, that sentiment is loaded. American security was the justification for Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and more than anything, she does not want these monsters to be weaponized. And racism ruins the party when Shaw introduces her.
You're Japanese name, yeah? Hey, she's one of the good ones.
Now, the offense is twofold. The obvious racism is so bad, but so is Puckett's defense of her. By saying that she's one of the good ones, he not only alienates her from her ethnicity, but also condemns other Japanese people in the same breath. And to add insult to injury, this happens at a party themed after a mystical Asian island. We cut to Keiko sitting alone. Shaw tries to comfort her, saying,
Have you ever heard the expression, to a hammer the whole world is a nail? Well, this is a hardware store.
Accidentally, he summed up the entire problem with Monarch being under the military. The military is only concerned with weapons and neutralizing threats, which inhibits Monarch from studying these monsters. She responds with the saying of her own.
The nail that sticks up gets hammered down.
It's a Japanese proverb often used to warn against being too different or conspicuous, but Keiko can't help standing out. There isn't even another person of color at the ball, let alone another Japanese woman. She is in an unwinnable situation, and that shows when they dance together. Immediately, other couples start looking at them. You have to remember that interracial relationships were not accepted at this time. In fact, it was illegal in many states. And according to a Gallup poll in 1958, 95% of white Americans did not approve of interracial relationships. This dance between Keiko and Shaw is the biggest affront to General Puckett. He can handle a female Japanese scientist if he thinks that she's helping them, but he cannot handle a white military man falling in love with her. We cut to 2015, Delta Junction, Alaska. Delta Junction is even farther away from our starting point of Utqiagvik, so Monarch was taking Shaw somewhere pretty remote, burying him deep, as Deputy Director Verduga said.
I can bury you deep, or I can bury you shallow.
As opposed to Tim, Duvall is acting unilaterally. She questions why no one believes him, and he says,
Because I'm crazy. Just like Wild Bill Randa and his crazy kid hero. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? How anyone who disagrees with him has got to be just crazy.
We keep coming back to Bill Randa's quote.
It requires open minds.
These people hunt monsters. Their primary objective is to protect the world from a giant radioactive dino lizard. That's crazy. In the confines of that logic, no theory or idea should be too wild to consider. We cut back to Monarch headquarters in 1955. On this giant chalkboard, there's this giant map that looks a bit like the one from Monarch Unlocked. Bill hands over new readings to Keiko, and she says,
The only other time I've seen isotopic signatures like this was in the Philippines.
Now remember, all Titans give off radiation, so they use radiation to track them. They decide that Bill and Keiko will go to Japan to investigate while Shaw stays behind. And notice this.
For the good of Monarch, something's got to give.
That's going to be important later on. We switch back to the FEMA housing at Alameda Point. Kentaro, Kate, and May walk into Caroline's house and find Shaw and Duvall waiting for them.
Guess who's back again.
So I love that they all have different reactions. Kentaro's happy to see him. May's worried that Duvall is there. And Kate doesn't care as long as her mom is safe. And then we finally learn what's at risk.
G-Day. Times 100.
What could that be?
Well, I think it relates to King of the Monsters. That whole movie was based around an eco-terrorist group releasing every Titan, but it got completely out of control when they released King Ghidorah, who usurped Godzilla as the Alpha. He started telling all the Titans to destroy the planet, and it wasn't until Godzilla became the Alpha Predator again that the other Titans retreated. So Godzilla, as destructive as he can be, is the safest Alpha Predator for Earth because he leaves humanity alone unless he's threatened. Later in the episode, Shaw says,
I'm trying to help him.
Now, if Monarch kills Godzilla, another, more aggressive Titan could emerge and wreak havoc on the planet. Maybe Hiroshi also knows this, and he keeps luring Godzilla to new places so Monarch can't find him. We cut to the ruins of San Francisco, and it's awesome to see them from this view. You can see exactly how the city was left untouched since Godzilla's retreat. Tim and Deputy Director Verduga retrace the trio's steps from Hiroshi's San Francisco office. She says,
All right, Columbo, dazzle me.
Who the heck is Columbo?
Ah, see, you're too young for that. Actually, I am too. Columbo's from a 70s TV show. He's sort of like a backward Sherlock Holmes. Instead of being suave and super intelligent, he's more bumbling and awkward, but he always solves the case.
The mold of your tooth is going to match exactly the bite mark on this piece of cheese, placing you at the scene of the crime.
So, Tim works his Columbo magic, and we find out that Hiroshi was working with satellites, just not in the way his kids thought.
He kept retargeting deep space satellites to look at things they weren't supposed to.
Gamma rays.
Remember, Barnes only picked up the radiation because she had an antique technology, which means that no one in Monarch is even looking for gamma radiation. Hiroshi discovered how to detect Titans from afar and no one listened to him. Tim draws out the map and mentions a few key Titan locations. He mentions Outpost 47, which is Barnes' location in Utah, and he also says,
like Hiroshi recorded 3 more gamma ray surges. Here, in Central Asia, and what would that be? Vietnam, Cambodia?
Central Asia spike could be from Mothra, the butterfly-like Titan that we see in King of the Monsters. She would have been nearing her emergence at this time. And there's another Titan, Typhon, in Cambodia that we see on the King of the Monsters map. And of course, the last spike is in Algeria, exactly where Kentaro, Kate, and May are headed. We flash back to Hataruma Island in 1955. So Hataruma Island is the most southern Japanese island near Taiwan. This weird, spiky-looking device is in a picture from Monarch Unlocked, and there was also a tiny picture of it on Hiroshi's desk last episode. We meet Dr. Suzuki, whose name might be a nod to Kenji Suzuki, the special effects director for several Godzilla movies and TV shows in the early 2000s. Just like Keiko and Bill, Dr. Suzuki is tracking the isotopic signatures. You can see the readings right here, but Keiko and Bill say,
no, but if the data is accurate,
then it means physics are
wrong.
Remember in episode 3 when Bill said,
we're talking about upending centuries of accepted science in evolution, zoology, physics.
Now this is the kind of stuff he was talking about.
But what physics is wrong, person?
Okay, so it has to do with gamma radiation.
The thing that turned the Hulk green?
Yep, so gamma rays occur on Earth, but in relatively small amounts. They come from things like thunderstorms, radium, and nuclear fission. But the most common source of gamma rays are in space, produced by solar flares, cosmic rays, and quasars. You following so far?
Yep, got it. Most gamma rays are in space.
Exactly, but there are not things like solar flares and quasars on Earth, so it should be impossible to have cosmic levels of radiation on our planet. But since Godzilla is radioactive, he is producing those impossible levels, so that's how physics is wrong.
Oh, so is that why Hiroshi was turning space satellites to look at Earth?
Yes, and it's why the only machine that measured gamma rays was an antique. That machine was used in the Cold War to detect nuclear bomb testing by the Soviets.
Robert, they just fired the starting gun.
And then we finally find out what the spiky machine is.
A gamma radiation simulator.
Basically, it's a Godzilla lure that uses fake gamma radiation as the worm. We switch back to the Algerian desert, 2015. Now right away, we get this shot of Shaw and Kate, which mirrors Shaw and Keiko's first day together. They're even driving in an open-top car, and Shaw says,
put in a lot of miles with you Randa girls over the years.
They get to the camp, and Kate doesn't want Monarch involved, but May repeats the line from last week. Also, Shaw's a bit cagey and aggressive, but I'll explain why in just a little bit. We cut back to 1955, where Shaw goes to General Puckett for permission to go to Japan. And just in case we forgot Puckett is military, he's wearing an apron that says 5-Star Grill Master General. Appealing to his military sense, Shaw says,
my people are in the field and they need me, sir.
It can't be anyone else because Shaw won't feel better until he is personally protecting Keiko. But remember, General Puckett is offended by their relationship, so when he says,
no, you have a choice to make, and I trust you to make it. Understand that what you choose will affect choices I have to make.
he's really telling him to choose Keiko or his career. We jump forward to Algeria 2015, and finally, we see Hiroshi. He's alive and well, and look at this little machine. It's a little less spiky version of the gamma ray simulator that Dr. Suzuki made. And he starts telling them to run because he's just put out the lure for Godzilla.
Oh, I thought it was because his secret children were together.
Yeah, I bet he wasn't happy about that either. Back in 1995, we see the gamma ray simulator sitting on a boat in the middle of the lake, and I really love how homemade this thing looks. It's like Dr. Suzuki really just pulled down an old television antenna. And from the viewing point, Dr. Suzuki asks Keiko if she's ever seen a Titan. When she says they're terrifying, he says,
Good.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now this harkens back to the 1954 Godzilla film. Godzilla is a personified nuclear bomb. The science behind nuclear bombs is both amazing and horrifying. On one hand, it was a major scientific advancement that later allowed for clean energy via nuclear power plants. But on the other hand, it created the world's deadliest weapon. Lee shows up, revealing that he chose Keiko over the Monarch budget meeting, and Keiko is furious.
Still sassy.
And therein lies the problem. Lee loves Keiko more than anything, but Keiko loves Monarch more than anything, and that's why she says,
How long before either of us makes a decision based on what
But why is it
want to do
okay when
instead
she
of
and
what
Bill get
Monarch
together?
needs?
Because their roles are the same. They're both scientists, so 99% of the time they have the same goals. But Lee is the military arm of their operation. They need him to focus on the army and the politicking so they have funding and legitimacy. For Monarch, Lee should have stayed in DC and led the budget proposal, but he chose Keiko instead. Bill will never be in that position.
Dang. What's up with all these books?
Now look at this detail though. When Godzilla ejects the gamma radiation simulator, Lee pushes Keiko out of the way. He saves her life. If he stayed in DC, who knows what would have happened. And then Godzilla returns. Now I enjoyed the last 2 character-focused episodes, but it was nice to finally see a monster again. He's also a lot bigger than he was in episode 3. That's because the bomb they tried to kill him with actually fed him a ton of radiation and allowed him to grow.
Hey, smooth move.
Also, look how happy Keiko is. Aww. It's heartwarming after how devastated she was when he died. We flash forward to Algeria 2015 where Monarch helicopters arrived. Now I know this isn't the same Titan, but this Godzilla emergence really reminded me of the Methuselah, the German Titan in King of the Monsters. Methuselah blended into his surroundings and basically looked like a giant mountain, just like Godzilla does here. Then we get this shot with Kate looking at Godzilla's massive head. It's almost a perfect match with this shot of Dr. Serizawa in King of the Monsters. Remember, Dr. Serizawa saved Godzilla then, so I wonder if this is foreshadowing and Kate's going to do the same. Also, this takedown of these helicopters has to be a nod to the iconic Kong scene.
Person, why is Godzilla in the desert? I thought he was a water creature.
Well, he is, but if you look at Hiroshi, he's actually next to this water source. Also, Godzilla travels via underwater tunnels, and some of them might lead where you might not expect. For example, one of these tunnels lead to the Loch Ness Lake where the Titan Leviathan lives. It's possible that these tunnels also lead to the water source, and that is why Godzilla is in the desert. We flash back to 1955 where the trio is arguing over whether or not they should tell Puckett. Lee says,
The most powerful weapon this country has ever created could not bring
now this
that
is a
thing
reference
down,
to the
so we
1954
can't keep that
Godzilla,
to
when
ourselves.
Yamane says, but when they enter Monarch HQ, it's too late. General Puckett's already handed over command to the Navy. Keiko's fear that is realized. And ultimately, I think this is why Keiko ends up with Bill Randa and not Shaw. I bet she can never forgive him for losing Monarch. It also explains why they're on their own in 1959. Look at their car. It's a beat-up blue truck instead of the military jeeps we saw earlier. I bet these 3 branched out on their own after Monarch was taken over. It also explains why Shaw chooses Godzilla over finding Hiroshi in this next scene. He's seen what happens when he puts his personal feelings over the greater good, and he won't let it happen again. Now, Kate has this unwavering optimism about their path forward until she hears about May. The worst part is that she wasn't the reason. At that point, she wasn't even working with Monarch, just Duvall. They only found them because of Tim.
Way to go, Tim.
May says, now remember how she said her job was computer shit last episode? My guess is that she hacked something really important that will come into play in future episodes. And that is the cliffhanger we ended on this week. What did you guys think? Did you think that Shaw will choose Hiroshi over Godzilla? Do you think that Kate and May make up? Big shout out to the writer of this video, Ms. Brianna McLarty. You can find her social links below. So let us know your thoughts down in the comments or at either of us on our socials. And guys, if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.